Joining me now, townhall.com columnist and radio host Derek Hunter, and syndicated radio host Leslie Marshall, also a Fox News contributor. Good evening to both of you all.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Good evening.
Okay, so assuming that we are all mentally healthy enough to have this debate, I want to talk about a little bit more about this. This is a little bit more of what that doctor had to say, Dr. Bandy Lee, who admits she has not met the president, anything like that. She says, "We feel that the rush of tweeting is an indication of his falling apart under stress. Trump is going to get worse and will become uncontainable within the pressures of the presidency." Derek, it seems like he's been the same guy that we've seen and we've known, brash and bold and, off the cuff. Do you think he's changed?
No, he hasn't changed. I've been following it. I've been a fan of The Apprentice since The Apprentice. It's a weird thing in Washington, D.C. that nobody ever speaks their mind. So when somebody does, it's considered a mental disorder. I got to give Dr. Lee a lot of credit for her willingness to willingly and knowingly and admittedly violate the ethics of her profession in order to sell books. We'll see if it works out, but I think a book could be written about the violation of ethics for her profession in this case.
Well, it's interesting that she came here to Capitol Hill and briefed people over a 2-day period on this very real discussion about what would happen. Now, there's been this discussion, Leslie, about the 25th Amendment, which provides a way for the vice president, majorities of the cabinet members to step in if they think the president is unable, incapacitated, can't get his duties done. But to that discussion, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, who has not been a conservative ever, says this to Politico: the 25th Amendment would require for mental incapacity a major psychotic break. This is hope over reality. If we don't like someone's politics, we rail against him, we campaign against him, we don't use the psychiatric system against him. That's just dangerous. What do you think?
Well, I actually do think it's dangerous to sound like you're making a diagnosis when you haven't actually seen a patient in any area of medicine. But I do think it's important for the American people to be aware of what is going on with their leader. I think it's important for this or any leader to have proper medical treatment. For Congress to be briefed by somebody who hasn't seen him, to me, is not ethical. And quite frankly, even though I'm a Democrat, I've said it before, Shannon, you've heard me, this is not how, if the removal of Donald Trump ever happens, this is not how it's going to come about, because you don't have the vice president, you don't have the cabinet, you don't have the Republicans in lockstep with the Democrats on this issue, even the one Republican that sat down for this meeting. So I really just think this, quite frankly, is a waste of time, because this individual has not seen him. Having said that, though, he does have some tweets that are very similar to the North Korean leader, who many of us do think is quite the wingnut. So I think he needs to stop some of that behavior, and then maybe these conversations would cease.
Can we talk for a second about what is crazy?
But we know he's not going to change his behavior. I mean, anybody who's followed him for 5 minutes, 5 years, 5 decades, he's not going to change his behavior.
And he won with that behavior.
Right, so. and he feels like by cutting through and using Twitter and that kind of thing, that's why he won. Do you think even the left, knowing that it is highly improbable that any of this could happen, the 25th Amendment, etc., do you think it just makes him feel better to talk about it, Derek?
This is for their base. You've got members like Jamie Raskin and Zoe Lofgren. Jamie Raskin usually looks like he slept in a bag of potato chips, coming out and talking about how the president seems unhinged from afar through somebody who admits that they're violating the ethics of their profession. What really is crazy is advocating for policies that have failed the world over. Look at the UK. They've canceled in their national health system all non-emergency procedures through the end of the month because their system can't handle it. Yet there are many members who met with Dr. Lee who advocate to bring that sort of system here. I'd take 180 characters of crazy at a time over a nationwide policy over 1/6 of the U.S. economy any day of the week.
Leslie, what do you make of Derek's assessment that a lot of people just are not used to plain-spoken, straight-talking people in D.C.? It's true. Everybody here is a spin doctor. They very carefully craft their speeches. This president doesn't do that. Do you think it's such a shock to the system that people think, well, he's got to be crazy?
No, but I do think that when an individual talks about the ability to start a nuclear war, which could kill millions of people and
but
Americans
he seems to be
by
hinting
pressing
at
a
ending
button.
one.
It's also not a secret that the president can start a nuclear
there's
war.
nobody. If somebody says and threatens, if you will, on Twitter that my button's bigger than yours and I can press it and it's right here, that's dangerous talk when you're dealing with a very dangerous and unstable leader overseas like we have in Kim Jong-un. And that is the type of behavior I think that people on my side of the aisle question the stability of with regard to the president. It's those specific types of tweets.
All right, we got to leave it there. Derek and Leslie, in our sanity, we will close this debate. Thank you both very much.
Shannon.